Welcome back everyone. After last week's jump video that so many of you liked, I thought it was time we took a look at the changes to passing, more in terms of the players, so which teams are winning, which teams are losing, which teams are gaining throwers that didn't have them before, and really trying to answer the question, should you now be running a thrower on a team where you didn't previously? Okay guys, I'm Rydog, and I'm a Blood Bowl 2 streamer, so you can catch me live on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday, where we stream Blood Bowl 2, usually, but sometimes some painting, occasionally a bit of fumble. We're always chatting about the game, and especially now with the new rules coming, then there's a lot going on, so why not drop by, say hello, and ask any of the questions that might come up. So now the Games Workshop are bringing us their 2020 edition, or their second season as they're calling it, for Blood Bowl, it's time to take a look at the changes they're making to passing. Now the primary change is that passing itself has become a new statistic alongside agility or movement or armour. There are also a host of new skills coming that change the way passing works, and a lot of the traditional throwers have now changed. Some have changed their value, some have changed their passing ability, and some have changed their skill set. And that's not to mention the new player types being added to give teams that didn't have throwers new throwers. So this week we're going to take a look at the winners and the losers of the new rule set and try and decide if you should be including a thrower on your starting roster. So the first team we're going to take a look at are the Chaos Renegades, or Chaos Pact. Now these guys have probably seen one of the largest changes in the fact that their linemen, the 0 to 12 position human linemen, used to have general strength mutation and passing access on normals or primary skills. They've now lost this primary access to passing, but to offset the loss of this passing access, the team has gained a new positional, a 0 to 2 Chaos Renegade Thrower. Now these guys start with Pass and the new skill, Safe Pair of Hands. I'll come back to that in a minute. But what they have gained over the usual Chaos Renegade lineman is a passing ability of 3+ and passing access on a primary skill. Now at 3+, this isn't the worst passing skill in the game, and really, the way it's all fallen out, 3+ is now actually pretty good, and it's a long way from as bad as it could have been. And when combined with the reroll from the pass skill, making a 3+ quick pass, it's not a bad option for these guys. The new Safe Pair of Hands skill that they come with is an agility skill, so in this case it's a secondary or a double skill that they start with, so that's a nice bonus. And it allows the player to decide where the ball gets left in the event that the thrower carrying the ball is knocked over. So rather than rolling for the scatter to decide where the ball bounces to, you can choose which square it's placed into. It has to be an empty square, but it gives you a little bit more control and avoids obviously a bad scatter into the hands of the person that knocked you over. So it's quite a nice skill, but not one I expect to see many people taking as part of a normal skill progression. But as a starting skill, it's kind of nice. These new throwers cost 75k a piece, so it's 25k more than the standard Chaos Renegade lineman. Now for this, they obviously gain their passing ability, they gain passing skills on primaries, 2 new skills, so for 25k it's a chunk of money to invest, but you're getting quite a bit for your money. They also gain Animosity all teammates, so this means they're going to make an animosity roll no matter what they do. So if they're trying to hand off the ball or throw the ball, they're stuck with making that roll no matter who they're giving the ball to. Which is not terrible, but again, just another downside for the Renegades team. But they are a team of different races, so there's some compromises to be made. And speaking of those other races, the Chaos Renegades have an other alternative. Rather than the thrower, if you can do away with the passing skills and access, you've also got the Dark Elf lineman as an option. This guy also has a 3+ passing ability and costs 75k the same, but it's agility 4. So an extra bonus there for picking up the ball or making dodges or other agility based tasks. Also has animosity all teammates, but could make an alternative thrower or ball carrier. So our second team is the new Imperial ability team coming packed into the starter set. Now these guys are kind of not, but pretty much kind of replacing the Bretonnian team. And in this case, the Bretonnian didn't have a thrower, and the Imperial nobles do. But this isn't the same thrower as the human team. So this is the Imperial noble human thrower with a passing ability of 3+. Same as the Chaos Renegades, but we'll come to humans later, they've got a slight boost here. Now this guy starts with the pass, the same as the Chaos Renegade thrower, but instead of having the Safe Pair of Hands skill, he has the new passing skill, Running Pass. Now, running past changes the normal passing turn sequence. So rather than in the normal rules, you would just make your movement and then your pass, and that is the end of your action. And this allows you to attempt to make a pass at any point during your movement. And assuming that pass is caught and doesn't obviously result in a turnover, then you can continue to make the rest of your movement. And this might allow you to make a pass and then run on to form part of a screen or a cage, or to assist in a block, without having to sacrifice that player, just making the pass. Again, another nice skill. This one's a passing skill rather than agility, so it is a standard skill for the Imperial nobles. And this one I can see a little bit more value in being taken as a normal skill progression, but probably further down the line for a thrower after they've taken some more core skills. Now, these Imperial throwers cost 75k, same as the Chaos guys, but their linemen are only 40k. So there's some scope in the team roster there to fit one of these guys, or maybe even two, given the fact that they are better than the linemen, even if you discount the passing skills. So it might be possible there to throw two of these guys on the roster, just so you're not carrying as many poor linemen. We'll have to wait and see how the meta falls out on that one. Now that covers our changing or new teams. Let's move on to our winners. And at the top of this list, my pick for the best new thrower is the human thrower, from the straightforward, bog-standard human team. This guy's statistics have remained the same. He's still 6'3", but he's gained a passing ability of 2+. So it's essentially a boost of 1 to his basic passing ability. Essentially, he's had accurate given to him, without losing either of his core starting skills, sure hands or pass, both of which have remained the same. He has taken a 10k increase from 70k to 80k, making him now 30k more than a lineman, but this, as a boost, is well worth that 10k extra, giving you now a 2+ quick pass attempt on a team that could potentially have 4 catches. This is a kind of an auto-include, in my opinion, for the human roster. Most human teams carried one to begin with, because they were essentially a lineman with 2 extra skills. Well, now that's the same case, but he's just better at throwing. Right on the heels of the human team are the Skaven and Underworld teams. Now, these both gain the Skaven thrower, and apart from the fact that the Underworld team has mutation access, this is the same positional. And again, he remains basically the same from the previous edition, with a stat line of 7337, but he's also gained a passing ability of 2+. Another single point improvement without sacrificing any skills. Now, the only reason all 3 of these guys aren't tied for top spot is the Skaven thrower is 15k more than he used to be, so a little bit more expensive than the human thrower. But everything that makes the new human thrower excellent also applies to the Skaven. So both of these teams coming out really strong with this new passing rule set, especially given that the gutter runners have now gone down to a 4+ passing ability, making the option to pick up and throw with a gutter runner kind of risky. Well, it's a coin toss at a 4+. So including that thrower, which was fairly common but not always seen, now makes far more sense, because you can use him to go and fetch the ball, throw it or hand it off to a gutter runner, and then you're away with it wherever you'd like to be. Okay, I'm also going to put the Orc Thrower in the category of winners. Now, this is a bit of an unusual, because a lot of Orc teams didn't bother to carry the thrower. I like him because I like early access to sure hands, makes everything a little bit safer. But in terms of the Orc team, he's a little bit lightly armoured, and doesn't bring much else to the party. Now, in terms of changes, his stat line remains the same, and his passing ability is 3+, essentially the same as it used to be. But what makes him a winner here is his cost has gone down, and this is the only thrower I found that has. So he's dropped by 5k, making him a fraction bit cheaper than he used to be. So overall, that's why he's a winner, because if you used to include an Orc Thrower, he's now cheaper, and if you didn't used to include one, maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you haven't lost anything by not having him. But on the counter side of this, just like the Chaos Renegade thrower, this guy's got Animosity all teammates. Now, Animosity is a new addition to the Orc roster for this new edition. It didn't used to exist. And the Blitzers have Animosity all teammates the same as the thrower, whereas the Black Orcs just don't like all the Black Orcs, and the Goblin and the Troll are fine. Now, I'm treating this as a bit of a nerf to the entire Orc roster, but especially for the guy you're expecting to move the ball the most, you're now adding an additional role that didn't exist before. So overall, I think the Orc team has gone down in quality, whereas the Orc thrower has taken a little boost relative to his old position. Now, our final winners is more of a category in the specific team, because all stunties in this edition have taken a boost. the stunty skill no longer applies a -1 modifier to attempting to make a pass. So essentially anyone with stunty has gained +1 point of passing ability. But we should watch out for the chameleon skinks and the halfling hefties, both of which have a passing ability of 3+, making them better than the majority of players in the game. And now that means we might even see a bit of a passing play for certainly the hefties, who have passing access on primary skills, so they have access to all the other passing skills, and the skinks, well, you could always use a little bit more speed, and being able to throw that ball, that could just entice the skinks to do something interesting. And with that, we come on to our losers, and the basic gist of this is, if you're an elf, I'm sorry guys, but you've ended up as a loser. Across the board, all the elf teams have taken a nerf here, a down turn in their ability. But the team that has lost the least are the Dark Elves. Now these guys didn't have a thrower positional in the 2016 rules, and that hasn't changed in the 2020. But rather than a thrower, they did have the Dark Elf runner, which was an interesting piece that not a lot of teams used because all elves, with their agility of 4, could do things. But now that passing has been split off from agility, it's worth looking at the entire roster. So the Dark Elf runner is now passing 3+. The lineman and blitzer are passing 4+, and the assassin and witch elf are passing 5+. So we're not likely to see many passes there from witch elves, which is not an unusual thing to see now. Now the Dark Elf runner's cost hasn't changed, he's still 80k, but he's essentially taken a -1 point of passing ability for that change. He still kept his dump off skill, but whilst that was a fairly poor skill before, now his base passing ability is 3, not 2, it's even worse. So dump off, less valuable than it was before. But given the nerf to the rest of the team, I think we'll now start to see runners being employed to give the Dark Elves at least some passing ability. But as this was the least ball-handly of the elf sides, they'll probably maintain the play as a running team rather than a passing team. Now I've put the Dark Elf at the top of our losers list because he has lost the least of the elven throwing type positionals. As we come on to the next two, you'll see why. And straight into that, we have the Pro Elves in our middle slot. Their throwers have retained the 2+ passing skill, essentially as they would have had previously, but they've gone up by 5k, making them a little bit more expensive than they used to be, but otherwise remaining the same. And for 5k, I think you can probably squeeze that into the budget somewhere. We'll have to have a look and see if you can. But again, a player that you was probably included more often than not and will essentially be that way going forward. Because the rest of the elf team, same as the Dark Elves, have taken a bit of a hit. So the linemen and the catchers, they're passing on a 4+. But here's an interesting one. The Pro Elf Blitzer is passing on a 3+. Now this probably gives the Pro Elves more options than most other teams. Because 3+ for a pass, well that's no worse than the humans used to be. So quite possible there we might see some vanity passes being thrown with a little bit of expectation of them working. Or even carrying now with a blitzer as a backup thrower. Now the Pro Elf catchers have retained Nerves of Steel, so this is a team that is kind of a little bit more geared around passing than not, and they do still have that option, but it's become a little bit trickier. And at the bottom of our list we have the Wood Elves. Now these guys have gone up 5k, same as the Pro Elves, retained all of their same stats, so a 2+ passing ability, and have retained Pass as a skill. Otherwise they've remained the same. The rest of the team, same again, have taken a bit of a nerf, all passing on a 4+ apart from the Tree Man, which kind of what separates the Proles from the Wood Elves and brings the Wood Elves right to the bottom of our list. So when it comes to trying to answer our question, should you be including a thrower on your starting roster, the answer comes down to a couple of things, but primarily your playstyle. If you like to throw the ball or like to have the option to throw the ball, then my answer is yes, you really should be including a thrower now because you don't have any other safe options. If you like access to the early starting skills like Sure Hands or the new skills, the running pass and safe pair of hands, then yes, you should be looking to include them because you're going to get those skills early and you're going to get those skills at a slight cost reduction compared to skilling a player up normally. But when it comes to the elf teams that have really suffered with this new rule change, I'm going to say you almost have to include a thrower in your starting lineup and attempt to keep one on your roster almost no matter what, so that you have the option to throw as a fallback or primary plan. Because your options, if that thrower is off the pitch or not on the team at all, are really risky. You can throw a reroll at it, but even so, you don't always have that many rerolls to play with, and asking a 4+ or even a 5+ player to have to make that pass is pushing your odds further than I would like to think you should. Now, of course, we'll still see vanity passes being made because you've nothing much to lose at that point. So a turn 8 or a turn 16 pass in order to gain a star player point or even level a player, that won't change because you're still going to attempt to make that pass, and by and large, players' abilities to catch hasn't been changed. You're still catching just as well or as poorly as you ever used to do. So that option will remain the same. People will still attempt that vanity pass. But in terms of passing as part of the main course of the game, it's probably going to be seen less often due to it becoming now more of a specialised ability given down to 1 or 2 players on a team, and some teams not really many options at all. Now, it will be interesting to see what happens to teams like the Vampires and the High Elves when they come through, assuming they do come back through the Spike system or another Almanac in the future. Vampires, with their agility of 4, were kind of competent when it came to passing the ball and worth considering, but the High Elves, most importantly, the Elf team renowned as the passing team. Interesting to see what changes they make there. And that covers all the changes being made to the throwing positionals. Now, the teams we haven't covered either don't have a throwing game or haven't got a throwing positional that has changed, but some teams like the Norse or the Amazons, which did have, they've disappeared or appear to have disappeared. So when they come back, there will be some changes there. So until next time, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If you'd like the video, then hit that like button. If you like the channel, hit that subscribe button. That really helps. If you've got any questions, drop those in the comments below. I'll answer them there. Or you can always hit me up on Twitch when we're live, answer them there, and I'll cover them for you in more detail.